Michael Steele, welcome.
How you
I'm so
doing,
glad you're
Colleen?
here.
It's so good to be with you. It's good to be with everybody. Thank you so much for the
Oh, thank
opportunity.
you. Well, you are a guest of the Frank Center here, and we are happy to have you join our students, our faculty, staff, alumni. We got a whole mix of people joining in this hour, and we are so happy to welcome you. Michael Steele is the former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, former chairman of the Republican National Committee, during which they won 63 House seats, if I remember correctly, for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
He hosts a podcast called the Michael Steele Podcast, and he's now co-host of The Weekend on MSNBC. So you've got a lot of things going on, don't you?
Busy.
So the way this will work this afternoon is I'll start with Michael. We want to hear about your career. We'd love to hear about what's happening in politics today and your thoughts. And then Faith Lee, our branch fellow for the Frank Center, she's going to be watching that question box in the Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, throw them in there, and Faith will be watching, and we will do question time at the end here. So thank you all for being here. Michael, I want to start maybe when you were college age, because I don't think a lot of people know that you actually considered being a priest, and you ended up in politics. So tell us how that happened.
I did. Well, first off, again, thank you. It's great to be with everybody. Appreciate being at the Frank Center with my old friend, Colleen. She and I worked together for a long time, and we had fun, and we caused a little trouble here and there. So don't let that sort of all shucks exterior of Colleen's fool you. She can get you. She'll get you in a corner and pin you down. But it was for me, an interesting journey. I'm not someone who woke up and said, "Gee, I want to be a politician, or I want to have elective office." In fact, my journey began very much from when I was in third grade. And that is to be a priest of the Catholic Church. And I spent my time growing up really with that forefront in my mind. And there were other things that I was interested in. In fact, ultimately wanting to be a church diplomat, because I did like the law, and I loved politics. And you get a little bit of both of those. If you know the history of the church, then you know they kind of invented most of it. And so it was one of those things that was very, very attractive to me. At the core of it, though, was this idea of service. And so for me, it was, okay, how do I, follow this calling of service? And the priesthood was the manifestation of that. So when I graduated Johns Hopkins, I had entered the Augustinian order in Philadelphia. On the campus of Villanova, which was the mother seat for the order and for the Augustinian order. And I went on and started the process of becoming a priest. I entered, made promises of living a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience, donned the habit in my novitiate year. And then right before it was time to leave to take, time to take simple vows, I decided I was, working through my vocation and my calling, and asked God, are you calling me to serve in a business suit or a religious habit? And that was a very difficult discussion and with myself. And, it came upon my heart that God had something else for me to do. He wanted to use the gifts he'd given me in a different way, but I had to go through this. And that was very important. As I look back over the years, I had to go into that space. I think I would be in a very different and probably more difficult space for me personally if I had not spent those 3 years as a monk, living a monastic life, and learning about myself, learning about my faith, and most importantly, learning about the human condition. And so that that has guided and girded me ever since I left the Augustinians.
So how did you get from there to Lieutenant Governor of Maryland?
Yeah, that's a trip. Well, again, it's Colleen, you and I've never really kind of dug deep into this in terms of our conversations. We have on some other things, but not so much this part of the journey. I'm an accidental politician. I really am. And people may find it hard to believe. I'm a lot shyer than you think I am. I mean, I'm a people person. I like people and I love meeting people, but I'm not this guy that's going to break down in a room and just start, hey, everybody, see me, look at me. That's not who I am. And so I want things to run. I want them to work. I want them to function. And so I've always looked at whatever I've done through a very strategic lens. How does this work? How does it function? How do you make it work better? So to give you an example of how at each point in my life, I am the accidental guy.
Yeah.
So I went to a Central Committee meeting in 1993 here in Maryland. I just moved to Maryland. I'm a DC native and grew up in Washington, DC. And when I got married, my wife didn't want to live in the city, so we moved to Maryland. She was living in Maryland with her mom at the time. And okay, that's where you go. And so some friends, they knew I had an interest in politics. I always had an interest in politics. I love political debate and discourse and spent a lot of time with friends doing that. And so I went to the Central Committee meeting here in Prince George's County, and I'm sitting in the corner of the room, and I'm watching the meeting with the Central Committee members of the Republican Party of Prince George's County plan something. And I'm sitting there going, these people don't have a clue what they're doing. They have no idea. And I guess the chairwoman sort of saw this quizzical, if not, oh, I smell an onion look on my face. And she said, excuse me, you have something you want to say, or because you're looking kind of at us funny. And I said, well, and my friend who had brought me, all of a sudden, he's kind of did one of these, like, okay, here we go. And I said, well, I really don't think that's how you should do that. I really think you need to look at this, you need to look at that, and then boom, you can do this. And she said, oh, it's pretty interesting. So why don't you do it? Why don't you help us do it? And I said, okay, sure, I'll volunteer, I guess. How much time is it going to take? It's like, I got to get home. And so from that moment, where I just made a funny look on my face, I got pulled into to this particular project, which had to, and what it was having outreach to Black folks. Still don't know how to do it, but yeah, but that's what they wanted me to help them with. And 2 years later, not even 2 years later, I was chairman of the local party. And then from there, went on to become state party chair after other members of the statewide committee pressed me to run for chairman. And I ran for chairman and got elected. And I was the first elected Black chairman for the Republican Party. Now, there had been one other chairman from Maryland, African-American, who assumed the chairmanship back in the 1960s when there was a vacancy. The chairperson in charge at the time stepped down. They became chairman and served out that term. But being elected, I was the first, and I was like, okay, let's get to work, and got to work doing that. So then Bob Ehrlich was in 2002. So I got elected state chairman in 2000. 2002, Bob Ehrlich was running for governor. He was a member of Congress, part of the class of 1994, and he decided to run for governor in 2002. I'm state party chairman. Senator Bill Brock, formerly of Tennessee, then of Maryland, was asked to come visit the RNC chairman the Maryland State Party chairman, and asked me for a list of names to consider for lieutenant governor. We spend 2 hours going through these names. I mean, I'm going through, pulling up papers and like, okay, well, what about this one? And what about that? 2 hours, Colleen. At the end of the 2 hours, I'll never forget it. At 4 o'clock, we finished. He gets up. I'm thanking the senator, and we're walking out the door. And he turns back and he looks at me and he goes, "So what about you?" And I said, "What about me for what?" And he said, "For lieutenant governor." I said, "What? No, we just spent 2 hours. What are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, Bobby really wants you to be on the ticket, but he doesn't want to ask if you say no." I said, "Couldn't we have started our meeting with that conversation?"
Yeah.
So long story short, I came home, asked the wife. She thought I was crazy because we live in Maryland. No Republican had won the governorship in Maryland since Spiro Agnew in 1966. We were running against the niece of Ted Kennedy, and Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who was then the sitting lieutenant governor,
Yeah.
and we won. And I became the first African-American elected statewide, the first Republican lieutenant governor in the state's history. And we served those 4 years. And then again, RNC chairman, didn't want that job, wasn't asking for it. 5 states in 2006. And then again in 2000, I said no, turned down 2006, 2008, after McCain lost, came and said, "We'd like you to be RNC chairman." And I said, "No." And they said, "We really do." And I mean, it's rare that states will pull together like that to ask someone to run. And I just said, "Okay, because I'm going to run and shake things up." And they said, "We know, that's why we want you to run." And I said, "Okay," because they were tired of losing races. They saw the success we had in Maryland when I was chairman. And I brought that to the national party and won a bunch of elections.
Well, tell us some highlights of that tenure, but aside from the 63 seats, like when you came in, it was like a breath of fresh air for a lot of people in the RNC and in the national party. How might you contrast that with what's going on right now, or how did you come and take charge?
It's night and day. It's night and day, Colleen. This environment now is, in my view, and for folks who may be questioning, I am still a Republican, and still mindful of the things that, at least forward-facing, we once stood for, and try to continue to project that. I am at odds with this party right now in its current iteration. Want it desperately to stop injecting the poisons of Donald Trump into its vein. So there's, for me, a night and day difference between what I did and what they're doing now. What I did was, one of the first steps, I had to acknowledge our sense. I believe very, very important. In order for anything to heal, you have to acknowledge the illness or the thing that ails you or the thing that holds you back. It's like a really good 12-step program. And what's the first step? Acknowledge what you are, right? Acknowledge how you've hurt people. Seek that forgiveness, or at least that understanding. And so that's what I attempted to do. I wanted to make sure people knew that I understood how they looked at the party up to that point. We had, over the years, danced with some pretty ugly things. And I wanted to call a clear break to that. We were still operating in a lot of ways, Colleen, under Richard Nixon's Southern strategy, which was designed to garner the support of white Southern men. And the party was stuck on that. I say it was stuck on stupid. And it was not looking at how the country was changing. It was there were more young women like yourself who were engaging in politics and moving into politics. There were more Black and brown people like myself, particularly younger members of those communities, who were also moving into politics. And we're seeing, even to this day, some 15, 20 years later, how much that has changed the nature of American politics and the direction American politics is headed. We have students right now protesting on college campuses, and that you know, a lot of folks aren't really kind of understanding why that's happening. Some of it, you kind of go, guys, all right, you want to probably draw back that narrative a little bit and rethink what you're saying. But that just speaks to how dynamically different this period in our history is from other periods in time. And so for me, it was a matter of doing the first steps, which was having a conversation with the party and with the American people and saying, we're no longer doing that. We were going to embrace the changes in this in the country. We say we're a big tent, we're going to prove it. And so I sought about doing that, diversifying the ranks of the party, diversifying the roles in the party, giving power to a Black woman to organize the entire country through our coalition's effort. And she did a phenomenal job, so much so that members of the party wanted to strip her budget for her committee. They were so threatened by what we were doing. So we had stair-stepped into a conversation with the American people. I remember when I coined the phrase hip hop Republicans, everyone kind of lost their minds. They were like, the hell is that? It's the new Republicans that are joining the party, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't that everybody was into hip hop. It was a moniker. It was a way of sort of distinguishing them as a group of folks who are of this time, this period in our history, but have roots or want roots or tie themselves to the Republican Party and what it stood for. That's not what we're doing today. It's all about one person and one person only. And I'm not about one person on this earth. There's only one person that I will ever acknowledge, and his name doesn't start with a D. So it's important that I think politically the party recognizes how it's harmed itself, but more importantly, how it's harmed the country in some of its behavior and rhetoric.
Well, we saw an effort to take Trump out of the process this season with Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis and others running against him. What do you think happens with folks like that who, Nikki Haley especially speaking for a voice very different than Donald Trump's, but still very much a Republican. What do you think? What does the bench look like to you?
The bench is good, actually. We have a very good bench. Democrats have a very good bench of potential presidential candidates after Joe Biden. I'm incredibly so that if I'm a Republican strategist, if I were a party chairman right now, I'd be looking down the line and go, oh, better watch Pennsylvania. Better watch Pennsylvania. And a few other places, and where the Democrats have done a very effective job. And again, I'm saying all of this first to set up what I'm about to say about where the GOP is. I'll put it here now, and someone can play this back, I guess, if they're recording it, or at least you can send me
a note. I'll play it to you.
A note saying, but I really believe come 2028, Texas, the great state of Texas, will be a battleground state. And that's how much the Republican Party has slipped. And it's because it's not paying attention to the demographics. People are moving from other parts of the country and settling in Texas. The governor of Texas has done a great job of advertising, come to Texas. Business is strong there. There's a lot of space. So you can go and move and raise a family, et cetera. But people bring their politics with them. And I moved to Texas doesn't mean I'm going to be some card-carrying, hard-ass Republican. I'm going to be what I am when I moved from California, when I moved from New York, when I moved from Florida, when I moved from the middle of the country. And so that's shaping and reshaping the politics there. So I think that's going to happen. And so what that means for the GOP and how it's looking beyond 2024 is, how are you positioning your argument to the American people such that they look at you and they see two things: a party that can govern with people who can govern, right? And And right now we've shown we can't do either. And that's hard. So Nikki Haley's race in this cycle was, from my perspective, extremely important. If I were the RNC chairman, there'd be a lot of things that would be different by now, because one or two things would happen. None of this stuff that has happened would have happened, or I'd be gone. So they probably would have gotten me rid of me early, because I wouldn't have stood for it, because I know it's detrimental to the soul of the party. And a good example of that is what happened to Nikki. It was very clear from that first debate, Nikki Haley should have been the nominee of the Republican Party, period, with full stop. She's poised, smart, successful governor, two-time governor of a red state, but who had, and I said had because, MAGA has a tendency to mess things up and screw with your thinking, had the opportunity to pull blue votes. And I think that was a lost moment when all the men in that primary started peeling off because they couldn't beat her. That's ultimately why they got out. That's why DeSantis, it wasn't because of Donald Trump. They got out because they couldn't eclipse Nikki Haley. Each time, each week, each debate, she was gaining more strength. And if they had done the manly thing and dropped out and endorsed the woman, Nikki Haley likely could be either in a very competitive race right now, meaning the primary wouldn't have ended a month and a half ago. We still be in a very, very competitive primary. Hell, she just picked up 38% of the vote in the Pennsylvania primary last week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. How stupid do you have to be to not recognize or see that coming? But yeah, I mean, I really think that they made some huge mistakes there. If Nikki Haley is the nominee of the party going into November, this race is over. She's up by 15 points right now, and this is done. But we have Donald Trump, so.
Well, we have Donald Trump and we have Joe Biden, and it seems like no matter who I talk to, nobody's really thrilled with their options.
Right.
There's an enthusiasm gap, it seems like, for a lot of people. If you could be strategist for me, what are the GOP's best issues going into this election, and what are the Democrats' best issues headed into November?
So let me do with the Democrats first, because
Okay.
it's a little bit easier on the issue side, since Republicans really didn't propose any issues, and the one that they could have, they killed. So on the Democratic side, I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't get what Democrats don't understand about this moment. You have an 80-year-old president of your party who not once, but twice shut down the GOP publicly with a level of sophistication and panache that we haven't seen since Reagan at both of his last two States of the Union and State of the Unions speeches. And yet you have these nervous Nellies. Oh my God, he's so old. Oh my God, I don't want him. Oh my God. Well, baby, that's what you got. That's what you got. Nobody inside the party leadership went to Joe Biden 18 months ago and said, Mr. President, we need you to stand down. And you know why they didn't? Can we just speak amongst us chickens here?
Yeah, please.
Because they were afraid of having Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. Because they basically wasted her first 18, 24 months in that job as vice president, to the point where Republicans could just pick her off, vilify her, and make her something that they knew Democrats could. We do this all the time. We'll say something about a Democrat and all the Democrats go, oh yeah, you're right. And then we're done. They just take the ball and run with it from there. They said, they overload the poor lady with, okay, we want you to be the border czar. Oh, no, we need you to be the black czar. Oh, and then we want you to go over to Europe and plant the flag. What do you want her to do? Give her one thing and let her be successful at it. But they didn't. So she was easy to pick off. her own internal political stuff notwithstanding, if she had had success publicly, trust me, all that internal political stuff would not bubble up because everybody would know better. So, but that notwithstanding, Democrats had a president who was able to negotiate in front of the country Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security off the budget, off the debt table discussion when they were talking about the debt, when they had to raise the debt ceiling last year. Republicans stood standing up applauding him. And I watched that and I went, damn. Y'all just got played on national television. And you can see Kevin McCarthy. Go back and watch it. It's great fun. Kevin McCarthy sitting behind the president with this tight grin on his face. And you know what the thought bubble is above his head. Y'all just need to sit your ass down and stop applauding the opposition. All right. So that was that. This year, the president negotiated again infrastructure that Republicans voted for, reducing the inflation with the Inflation Reduction Act, which Republicans voted for. They could have strung him out. They could have held him hostage. I mean, and even on the budget bill. And then just this past week, on the Ukraine aid and Israel aid, Joe Biden yet again got Republicans to do the people's will. And so I don't know what Democrats are whining about, to be honest. I really don't. You got something to run on. Oh, then there's abortion and education and a whole bunch of other things that you can run on as issues. And you're whining. You're whining. And I don't understand why you're whining. You're not getting anyone else unless God calls Joe Biden home between now and November. You're not getting anybody else. So suck it up, buckle up, and get ready to defeat the guy. Let's move on to Republicans, who says he wants to be a dictator.
Yeah, in that Time Magazine interview this week, he says he's going to use the National Guard to round up undocumented people in the country. I take it you don't like that.
So no, everybody should know where I stand, but this is for the folks that are part of this webinar.
Yes.
You have to ask yourself if that's what you're down with, because that's what he's talking about. Are you down with having our military round up citizens? Now, citizens aren't necessarily people who are, with American citizenship. They're people who are here in your country, right? Because our Constitution says you come here, you get the benefits and protections of our Constitution, right? Whether you're illegal or not. So,
don't you think immigration's a great issue for Republicans this season?
I was going to get to that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It is, and it isn't. It is because people are frustrated with the lack of any movement on immigration. It isn't because you had the most conservative immigration bill that the Congress could pass. You know how I know it was a tough bill? Because the progressives that I work with were losing their friggin' minds. And a whole lot of them were like, well, I'm not voting. I can't vote for that. I can't vote for that. But they had enough of the center and the center left in the Democratic caucus to pull that bill through. It would have passed. The immigration bill would have passed, but it didn't. You know why it didn't? Because Donald Trump called Speaker Mike Johnson and told him to tell the Republican caucus he did not want them to pass that bill because he wanted to run on the issue in November. So here, okay, fine. That sucks in and of just by itself. But then let's wind the clock back. Everybody wants to go, were you better off 4 years ago than you are today? Well, let's go back 4 years ago. All right. I'm not even talking about COVID, because that was a cluster, all by itself 4 years ago. But let's just wind back and look at immigration 4 years ago. Let's wind back and look at infrastructure 4 years ago. And what was happening? Nothing. Republicans controlled the House and the Senate in half of Donald Trump's 4 years. There was not an immigration bill, and we did infrastructure every day for 4 years and got nothing done. Joe Biden comes in, first 12, 16 months, gets infrastructure done. gets Inflation Reduction Act done, solves the COVID problem by getting needles into arms, and everybody's complaining. They want the guy who wants to be a dictator. Why? Because you think it was better 4 years ago? Oh yeah, we didn't have high inflation 4 years ago. Well, guess what? When I was your age, gas was 50 cents a gallon. How do you think that I feel right now? I want to go back to when gas was 50 cents a gallon. Come on, people, get real. Get real. Prices go up because that's what prices do. You know, we had a supply chain issue that wrecked not just our economy, but the world, right? So we recovered from that, and we are still recovering from that. And I think for the Democrats, that's what they run on. I think they first have to acknowledge the problem, the thing that people feel, and then tell them why they shouldn't feel that way, or not why they shouldn't feel that way, why they should feel better about that, about those issues, because we have addressed them. We are now seeing shovel-ready projects pop up all over the country. I've traveled a lot over the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm telling you, I'm sitting in construction traffic wherever I go. And it's funny to hear people whine about construction traffic. I'm like, well, you know, you wanted that because you wanted this bridge fixed, right? So guess what? You should be, yay, thank you. But here we are. I mean, Americans are interesting when it comes to these things, and they process it in a way that the political parties have to tell their story. So in immigration, Republicans had an opportunity to make a strong case, but they didn't want Joe Biden to get the win. And so they killed it. Democrats have been wholly inept at messaging from the very beginning. And they've allowed the country to come to see this presidency, not regards to his age, but to regards to his accomplishments as either having not happened at all, because they just don't know it's happened, or believing it's not enough.
I want to talk about the Trump trials because I watched a clip of you recently and you were warning the media as this hush money trial got underway not to go overboard,
Yeah.
not to start the countdown clocks and things like that. Can you tell everyone a little bit about what you were thinking, what you thought on that?
Our media has been the worst actor in all of this from 2016 to 30 minutes ago. And the reason is because they've gone away from journalism and more to the bank account. It's about the advertising dollars. It's about the clicks on social media, the likes. It's about the gotcha of politics, which now generates a lot of energy. You know, it is very true. If it bleeds, it does lead. And so when it came to this moment for this trial that began 3 weeks ago, I wanted to at least put my voice in the conversation, saying, y'all need to take a chill pill and just report the news. I don't need a run by, you know, the minute kind of exhortation of what's happening. I don't need you, you know, breaking into regular program, because there's not another trial in the country that's going on right now that you would do that for. And the reason I say that is I know it's involving a former president. I know it's unprecedented. We haven't been here. Oh, because no other president would ever do what Donald Trump has been accused of doing. But there is that. But because the more you play to the drama, the more it benefits Trump. I still marvel that they provide him with the level of Secret Service protection that they do not provide any other president. I've seen Barack Obama's motorcade come to a restaurant. It is about 2 cars or 3 cars at most. He doesn't have a news truck, meaning the truck that would carry the press behind him. So they still treat this man as if he's the current president of the United States. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is because he's now engrossed himself into the legal process. And notice the way I said that. Can we stop the BS lie that, you know, the Biden White House is persecuting Donald Trump? All the crap that Donald Trump is dealing with right now from the Justice Department, began under Bill Maher, began under the Republican Justice Department. So this again is where I get at Democrats. Again, how stupid are you to allow that messaging to even stand and not knock it down? So, but these lies about what's happening, I'm sorry, you're not being persecuted, you're being prosecuted. And if you run your mouth one more time, I'm throwing your fat behind in jail. That's what the judge should do, because that's what the judge would do to you or me. I can't take my laurels as a former lieutenant governor and, I don't know, allow them for not putting me through the legal process the way they would anybody else. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm a former lieutenant governor. I don't think I'm going to appear in court today. Or I'm a former lieutenant governor. I gotta go to my son's birthday party or graduation. Okay, sir, we'll accommodate you. I don't know how or why we got here, but in this trial and the subsequent trials, I think we need our press to stop aggrandizing Donald Trump and stop, quite frankly, being in awe of him. As much as they criticize him, they are in awe of him. And oh, by the way, the same is true of Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his fake news BS is all BS, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump was the guy back in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s, calling the New York Times, calling the Washington Post, pretending to be somebody else to plant stories about himself in the papers. In those same fake newspapers that were supposedly printing fake stories, he was an active participant, even during his presidency. As Maggie Haberman and others would tell you, the phone calls they would get from Donald Trump for his trying to shape the story that the way he wanted it. And then when it didn't go the way he wanted it, would stand in front of a bank of microphones the next day and say it's all fake news. So this is the problem the press has had a hand in creating, and they now have to live with it. And as you know, from our time working together, we've seen it up close and personal at times, that they're going to have to deal with it in a way that salvages their dignity, because right now they're having a hard time doing that.
Well, let me challenge you for a little bit, because I first met you about 20 years ago when you were in office and then chairman, and then we had you on as a party person, and now you are a host on a network.
Yes.
So how do you handle it on your show?
Well, folks will tell you I don't suffer it at all. I'm very careful not to call out anyone individually, even necessarily at another network, because I don't want to do that way. I speak more broadly about the media, and I include cable, and I include various people from time to time, even in our own family. But I'll do it in a way in which that I'm not trying to create an enemy or create a problem. I'm just trying to stoke a memory, trying to remind you, this is not how you do this. And you need to be honest in the reporting. I'm not a reporter. And I tell people that straight up. I'm not a reporter. Don't want to be a reporter. I don't pretend to be a reporter. I don't even play one on TV, right? I know what my role is. But you have some people, as you know, Colleen, in this business, who've forgotten what their role is. And the Klieg light is gone and the red light in front of them turns on, and it becomes a whole nother thing. And I don't think that's helpful to our democracy right now. We call them the fourth estate. We level them up to the other three branches of government. So that requires a lot of responsibility on their part. I try to be mindful of that in how I do our show. We have a journalist in Alicia Menendez on our show. Simone Sanders, who's our other partner, is out of the political world like myself. And Alicia is straight down the line, and I appreciate that about her. And that's what we try to bring each week. But I'll admit it's hard. And I see some people squirming from time to time, but As long as I don't have to squirm, I'm good.
Well, let me, I'm going to ask you one question here and then turn it over to Faith, who's going to
Mhm.
have questions from the question box. Um, we've got a lot of journalism and college and media students on this webinar
Sure.
right now. So I'm wondering what your advice is for them covering politicians, having now kind of been on both sides of it. For anyone who's interested in covering politics down the road, what's a piece or two of advice for those students?
I really appreciate that question. And I want to keep it. Let's pick up where I left off, because for those of you who are journalism students, try to be a student of journalism. Look at the history of journalism in this country from its very beginning, and appreciate the continuity of its authority, not in an administrative way or political way, but the authority it brings and gives to the words of our Constitution, the actions of our politicians, the policies that are put out there. Tell those stories honestly, tell those stories with an appreciation and an understanding of how it is tied into the fabric of what the country claims it should be. That's one. Two, don't lose yourself in the story, because it ain't about you. It's not about you. I know you can't control the headlines. And so I've talked to enough reporters to know there have been a couple of headlines that they've had on their stories. They're like, why the hell did you put that headline? Because that's not my story.
Mhm.
But those are editorial decisions that try to bait people in because they want, again, people to buy the paper or do the click, the download, whatever. That's a separate piece. Your integrity, your journalism is in what you write and how you write it and how you share information. Now, if you want to be an opinion writer, be an opinion writer. All right? If you want to spout off and flap your lips about something, do it. But don't do it on the front page of the paper. Don't do it on the front page of the website. Don't do it in a way that confuses the public of the difference between journalism, right, and telling the story and having an opinion about the story, because those are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And what some folks try to do, Colin, is they try to do a little bit of a side sandwich salad thing, kind of mix it up, right? Have a little bit of both. It doesn't work, folks. It does not work. It is a trap if you think I can lead with the story on the front end, in the middle, slip in a little bit of my opinion, and on the back end, come out with something else. You're doing yourself, I think, a lot of harm when you do that. And it's better to be true to the kind of journalist that you want to be that completely. And if you want to be the beat reporter that covers politics, if you want to be an anchor that tells multiple stories from a variety of perspectives, if you want to be in the opinion space where you have something to say about stuff and you want to be able to take immigration and healthcare and student protests and frame the issue around your opinion, or frame your opinion around the issue, then pick that lane and do it. And I think that way you'll be happy. Number one. Number two, the rest of us will appreciate you.
Great advice. Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Faith Lee here and let her get her camera on. She is the Brandt Fellow for the Frank Center, and she's been monitoring the Q&A box. So take it away, Faith.
Okay. We have just a couple questions here, and the first one comes from Penny Bradford, and it says, how has your identity as a Black man played a role in your leadership and decision-making throughout the years?
Wow. Penny is her first name?
Penny's a journalism student. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good journalist question there. I like that. I like that. That, that was always important to me. That I never lose sight of who I am and the color of my skin, despite what I may do in business, what I may do in politics, what I may do anywhere. Certainly, as we started the conversation, being a member of the Catholic Church as a priest, because that's who I am. My mother told me when I was very, very young that be yourself and don't be what somebody else wants you to be, and never lose sight of the fact that when you walk out of the house, I see my son walking out the door. Everyone else sees a young Black kid walking onto the street, and all that goes with that. So I was reminded very early that that this matters, and it matters to me, and it has annoyed the hell out of a lot of people, because there have been a lot of Republicans who have looked at me and said, well, now because I'm a Republican, or I'm a part of this community, then I should act, sound, and be like them. I'm like, well, no, I'm still Black. I got to go home to a Black neighborhood. I can't go ahead and sound as stupid like y'all. Are you crazy? You get me killed. I can't do that. So let me help you. Let me help educate you. Let me help bring you up to speed while I'm here, because you can't forget who you are. And some people do. Some people do forget that. And I never have. And so it has been a part of everything I've done in my public life. Because it is consistent with what I've tried to do in my private life. And I bring all of that to every aspect of what I touch. Now, I'm not out here, being the angry Black man in, typical stereotype fashion, or being the placid Black figure. No, I know when to throw a punch and I know when not to. And as does anybody else, I would suspect. But I do try to use my experience growing up, the experiences that I have now that are shaped by my identity and the color of my skin, as part of the narrative. So people understand when I say, as a young lawyer in the early 1990s, I was trying to, I was managing a case. I was a corporate lawyer managing a $385 billion deal. And when I came into the conference room in New York, people thought I was a paralegal, or they thought I was a delivery, because I came in with a bunch of boxes. And the guy looked at me and said, oh, you can just put those over there. And I said, okay. And I put them over there, and I sat down in that spot. And then he comes over like 3 minutes later and he goes, may I help you? And I go, no, I'm good. I'm in the right room, right? But you know where that was going. They didn't expect, a young Black lawyer to come walking in the room, because my name was Michael Steele, not the blackest name on the planet. And, you would think, since it was funny, because we'd have conference calls in the day. We didn't have Zoom and all this stuff. The conference calls. So I'm on the phone, and, I'm representing, big financial institutions, and I'm just talking and, being professional, and they're drawing conclusions. And so when I show up, it's like, oh, he's Black. So yeah, I've been reminded, and I try to remind others. And I think that's going to be important, particularly for journalists of color and female journalists. That's something you're going to have to, even in the first quarter of this century, deal with, just as I had to deal with it in the last century.
Okay, and then we just have one more here from Ray Fletcher. It says, do you think the Republican Party of today would agree with everything you are saying today that seems to be against the party?
That's been one of my biggest frustration, because the answer is yes. Yes, they do. They absolutely do agree. But the problem is they can't say it publicly. I can't tell you, and you guys have heard and probably know people who have said, oh my God, Trump this, oh my God, MAGA that. But they are too afraid to say anything publicly because they don't want anybody tweeting at them. They don't want Donald Trump calling them a name. And so they hold back. It has been very frustrating at first, then anger. I mean, I guess I kind of gone through like that whole thing with grief, so, so, I got to,
And through the 5 stages of grief?
yes, I got through the frustration, just the shock of, oh my God, there's nobody here. Oh my God, I'm not all alone. Then you realize you're not alone and other people, but they won't say anything. So then you're frustrated and then you get angry. And I'm at the point where I don't care. So I look at myself in the mirror and I go, this is what I believe. I fundamentally believe the things that Lincoln and Frederick Douglass formed this party on over 160 some years ago still matter and still have value. And individual liberties are at the center of that. It was the whole core behind freeing enslaved men and women, was that we saw them as citizens. We saw them as individuals who needed the protection of the Constitution and fought, and won their freedom. And so that still matters to me in a lot of ways. And I know it matters to a lot of Republicans out there. It's just disheartening that they can't find the resolve to stand up in the face of the tyranny of Trump and MAGA and call it out for what it is. I mean, I get grievance. I got a whole lot of things I could be pissed off about, 400 years of it, quite honestly. But my community didn't storm the Capitol. We fought to defend it in the midst of slavery and enslavement. And yet these penny-ante little piss pants who are so upset because, what? Black and brown people are achieving success and are growing in size and number, and politics and culture are much more reflective of a pluralistic society as opposed to a homogenous one. And that makes you angry. You feel like, oh, I can't pass on to my kids what I got. Well, yeah, every generation had to work harder. So, I'm not making excuses. I don't make excuses. And I wish people in my party would stop making excuses. But they don't. That's
What
why I
might
can
you say to
continue to fight.
Republicans who are going to what might you say to Republicans who are going to hold their nose and vote for Trump?
What do I say to them?
Yeah. What's your advice to them? They don't like Trump, but they're going to vote for the Republican ticket.
So you're voting for a dictatorship. You're voting for a man who's going to round up the guy and gals that you know in your community that are standing next to you in a coffee shop, because until they're processed, they're going to be thought to be illegals because of the color of their skin or their accent. That's what you want? Okay. Then that tells me who you are. Because remember, the people we elect are an extension of ourselves. You don't really elect strangers to office. You get to know these people, and they say things to you, and you either go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, or, and this is the thing, the hold that Trump has is summed up in this one vignette. Woman, white female, suburban mom of 2, divorced, working and living in New Hampshire. When asked in 2016 why she was supporting Donald Trump, you know what she said? Because he's just like me. People vote for an extension of themselves. So if Donald Trump wins, that tells you who we are. It's not complicated. This election is not going to boil down to tax rates and the price of bread or gas. It just isn't. No election in this country really does, because it boils down to the men and women that we think are the better extension of ourselves to address those things that we're concerned about. And it said a lot to me, and it was a big warning sign after the Access Hollywood tape released in 2016, that a lot of people thought that white suburban women would be turned off. Well, I just told you what she said. They didn't hear what she said. He's just like me. So of course, when the tape came out, she wasn't going to be turned off by it, because that's her thing. She doesn't have a problem with a man saying, hey, I like to grab women by their private parts. That's an extension. And that's what I'm talking about. So it's not as neatly packaged as people may think it is, nor is it as sloppy as some people try to make it. Voters have a way of compacting these races and these campaigns down. That's why I tell people national polls between now and September are stupid. They're a waste of time. Don't pay attention to them. They mean nothing. After Labor Day, that's when voters start telling you where their vote is going to go. And you'll get a better sense of how they're going to vote, because elections start right after Labor Day, early voting in a lot of states. And you'll begin to see, because voters then are confronted with, who am I? And who are these individuals in front of me relative to who I am? And we'll see what they say.
One last question, because I
Sure.
know you're so in tune with all the different state, it's 50, as Brian Williams used to say, it's not one election, it's 50 state elections.
It is.
You are super plugged into all 50 states like that, and have been for a long time. What are 2 or 3 states you think are going to be pivotal in November?
So, excuse me, this race boils down to about 5 states and 55 to 60,000 voters. That's who's going to elect the next president. It's stupid. That's what our electoral system does. It forces us down to that. It takes the funnel and it brings it in like that. 2020, it was 3 states and 78,000 votes. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. This year, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, and then on Nevada, it's going to be interesting. So I kind of put it on the side. Ohio. Why you see the Trump folks kind of fighting over the voting process. I believe it is in North Dakota, where you can, you could do it. They do their electoral votes by state and county. So they're trying to now get it so that it's just the one state, because the largest county is largely a Democratic county. And so if they've made it just one electoral vote, I mean, the electoral votes wouldn't be divided between the state and the county. It would be divided. It would just be the one person. And of course, likely on a statewide level basis, Trump would win that state. And that's how close, that should tell you how tight this race is going to be. So I think the states that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to are the 3 from the last time: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and I'm going to throw in Georgia. Georgia is going to be very interesting to watch, and Arizona. So those 5 are going to be an interesting combination. 5 states, about 60,000 votes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Michael. It has been such a treat to get to talk to you today and hear your expertise. We're so grateful.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Enjoyed meeting everybody and seeing you. Hello. And y'all take care. Have a great rest of the year. And please, 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 please don't forget to vote. Share that message with your family and friends and your community. It is important. Don't care how you vote, just do it.
Thank you so much. It's been so great. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. You guys take care.
You too. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great night.